Okay, so this one is gonna be about the simplest way of cleaning up your mix, which is simply removing any element you don't need. There are a couple techniques to this, mostly gains and volume automation. If you learn to use these well, you can really get a lot cleaner in your mixing without really losing much, because you're only removing stuff that wasn't really necessary anyway. So the most basic way of doing this, of course, is volume automation. You simply put a gain plugin on whatever track you want to automate and fade it to negative infinity whenever you don't need it. For example, here you can see I've got shakers, I've got hi-hats, and I felt like the shakers on these ones here weren't really necessary, so I just faded them out. And this is gonna remove a lot of clutter in the mix if you do this for everything. Control any reverb tails, control any noisy parts of your sound that doesn't really contribute to the main composition. The next step, and maybe the next most complicated technique for this, are gates. Everything quieter than the threshold will be turned down, either to negative infinity or by a certain range. For this I would probably set it to negative infinity and use attack, release and hold to tweak the reaction speed. This is especially useful on sustained sounds or any kind of sound with a lot of background noise in the recording that's clearly quieter than the main interesting part. Now the next technique is using transient shapers as gates. These function kind of similarly if you set the sustain to negative infinity, but instead of going by when the sound is louder than a certain threshold, they instead open up whenever they detect a transient, so this can be very useful to shape your drums. Remove any non-percussive parts from them. You can then use the speed control to tweak how long the gate stays open and maybe dial back in the sustain, turn it up a bit again if you don't want to completely remove the tails. This can greatly clean up any kind of percussive loop. Now the only way to really get a sense for this, in my opinion, is to do it a lot and to overdo it. So one of the exercises for this is just gonna be to save a track of yours, ideally as a different version, and then go completely to town with this. Remove anything you possibly can get away with. Remove too much. Cut any kind of tails from the drums. Maybe fade out instruments when other instruments are playing. Just be as aggressive as possible with this to really test out the boundaries, how far you can take this. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by how much this can help clean up the mix. So yeah, that's it. See ya.